Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Right now I'm seeing a lot of chart analysts calling for a bear market. It's suddenly very trendy to be a bearish chart analyst. And what stands out to me is not just what they're saying, but what they're ignoring. And that's macro, my friends, especially liquidity, which has driven risk assets like crypto and stocks, literally for decades and decades and decades. For over 16 years, Bitcoin has tracked global liquidity with stunning consistency, and that relationship has shaped every major cycle we've ever seen in crypto. And in this video, this latest Moon Lambo hot jam, I'm going to show you why exactly that I believe that historical relationship, it still matters right now, even as many analysts dismiss it, just hand wave it away. I'm also going to make my very own prediction on this exact topic. Another thing I'll be sharing with you is direct commentary from Tom Lee of Fundstrat, who supports the idea that the traditional 4-year crypto cycle may be breaking down, using some of the same ISM-based evidence that Raoul Pal and Julian Biddle have been highlighting, which I've been sharing on my channel for quite a long time now, probably about a year at this point. It's going to be a good one, folks. Now, let's tell you this. If you want to know if your XRP is going to hit a new all-time high, if you want to know if it's going to rocket and finally melt faces and land on the moon, so on and so forth, add in crypto meme here, you need to understand this, because this, as far as I'm concerned, is at the core of whether or not we're going to see XRP rocket. It's at the core of whether or not Bitcoin goes on a final parabolic run and we have a proper alt season. It's this right here. And what I'm sharing with you, unfortunately, is not common knowledge. This is uncommon knowledge. I want you to know it, and go tell your friends and family. Go ahead and call up your grandma and grandpa after the video is over. Let them know what Moon Lambo taught you, because everybody should know this. It is that foundational. And no metric is the end-all be-all. I'm not making that claim. But if you're a chart analyst who says, no, we are not going to have a face-melting rally, and yes, we're entering a bear market, if you're one of those guys, please tell me what your macro thesis is and why Raoul Pal's is wrong. Please tell me that. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. All right, so there's this video on your screen right here from Paul Barron. This is the Paul Barron Network. He has a very quickly growing channel on YouTube, now at 2.06 million subscribers. And he shared this video titled Crypto Supercycle, Tom Lee versus Michael Saylor Strategy. And I watched this whole thing, fantastic video. And there is a segment in it, the part of which begins, it's on your screen right here. If you want to go check it out yourself, it begins just a minute into the video. And it's showing Tom Lee on the left. He's a CNBC contributor, and I believe he's one of the founders of Fundstrat. And he was speaking at Binance Blockchain Week. That was December 3rd and 4th this year. And he gave a presentation in Dubai at Binance Blockchain Week. And he was arguing many of the same things that I've seen articulated by Raoul Pal and Julian Biddle. And they've been saying it for over a year. He's saying some very, very, very similar things here. And it looks like he came to a lot of the same conclusions on his own, using a lot of the same metrics, just digging into data. It's the rational conclusion to come to. And if this is indeed correct, and this is what makes the most sense to believe is likely to be true, then this market cycle is not over. It simply is not. So I went ahead, and I want to give a shout out and credit to Paul Barron here, because he is what inspired me to make this particular video. And so I went ahead and transcribed exactly what was said here, and I'm going to add some additional commentary onto this. But I transcribed exactly what Tom Lee said, and Paul Barron clipped it here. And it is incredibly telling. And so I shared this post on Sunday. I wrote the following: a short thread. It's very trendy to be bearish on crypto right now. If you'd like a strong bullish thesis in opposition to the nonstop flow of FUD, then this thread is for you. I transcribed a portion of Tom Lee's presentation from Binance Blockchain Week in Dubai, December 3rd and 4th, 2025, and have pasted a few of the associated charts and slides along with it. Credit to Paul Barron, who clipped the video of Tom's presentation on his YouTube channel, which I'm using in my thread. And then I also went ahead and CC'd Raoul Paul, Julian Biddle, and TechDev on this because it's these four guys in particular that are, I'd say some of the most well-known figures, in terms of analysis in crypto, and they've all been strong proponents of this idea. And so here's where it begins. This is a direct quote from Tom Lee, and that's him on the left on your screen there. He says, "It's still hard to escape this chart. 3 of 3 times exactly called the top and the lows." And the chart on the screen here, of course, is the Bitcoin 4-year cycle. And that's a real thing. Cyclically, it has been 4 years ever since the great financial collapse. Now, of course, although he doesn't say it right here, the reason that we've had that 4-year rhythm ever since the great financial crisis is because when everything fell apart, you had a ridiculous quantity of businesses as a result refinancing at the same time, refinancing debt at the same time. They needed help, they needed liquidity, and so that set that rhythm. Basically the heartbeat of macro at that point, from that point. So then 4 years out. So you'd have some firms that, they'd get loans 3 years out, some 5 years out. It averaged to 4 years out. And that's why you actually had the 4-year cycle. That's also uncommon knowledge. I'm just going to keep streaming it on my channel to anybody that will listen, though. And so then there's the next post. This is it's just a thread, so I'm just going to read through this. Then he shared this slide in his presentation. And he wrote, "But the problem with the halving cycle explaining Bitcoin's price is that there's a lot of things that have a 4-year cycle. Presidential elections, Olympics, World Cup, etc." And here you can see there are 10 different things that have 4-year cycles. So throwing the 4-year halving cycle in with it, that doesn't prove anything. All that shows is correlation, but does not prove causation. And I have long stated that it is not causal. Certainly not now. Maybe you could have had a stronger case way back in the day. But there's almost no new Bitcoin being created at all. Almost all of it already exists. So when you're talking about a new amount of Bitcoin entering the space that's already almost nothing, and then you cut the almost nothing in half again, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't. It just doesn't make sense. The people that are still talking about the halving causing the 4-year cycle, I just roll my eyes and it's hard for me to take them seriously at this point. How do they not know this? It's just astonishing to me. Anyway, and then he said with this slide, he wrote cycle ? Copper versus gold. That's the chart on your screen now. And he said, but there are some things that follow a 4-year cycle that no longer follow a 4-year price cycle. So he's saying that historically there have been some things that have followed 4 years, but they're no longer 4 years. Why is that? So he says, let's look at the ratio of copper prices, which is measuring industrial activity, to monetary base, which is gold. You can see it had a predictable 4-year cycle, except this time. And then he shared this slide, which is cycle ? ISM manufacturing. And ISM, of course, is part of the business cycle. It's the key metric of the business cycle. And he wrote, similarly is ISM. But as you can see, the ISM is not following a 4-year cycle today. It's actually stayed below 50 for almost 3.5 years. Well, folks, that's kind of something, isn't it? Because look at where it peaked before. Each of these peaks before is where Bitcoin peaked. And we know it's macro. We are talking about liquidity. And unless you think that liquidity doesn't have a tremendous impact in where money flows, then duh, right? It's on your freaking screen right there. It's not hard to understand. And then he shared this post. And he said, you can see it almost perfectly explained every Bitcoin cycle, including the original Bitcoin price peak. So it's even more explanatory than the 4-year cycle. But again, this time the ISM is not peaking. Folks, this is exactly what Raoul Paul and Julian Biddle and TechDev have been talking about for at least a year at this point. At least a year. And now more people are paying attention. And so look what he's highlighting. This is just data. And so then he wraps things up by saying, I'm not in the camp that Bitcoin prices peaked. And the only way we'll know is if we make new highs in January, which is our bet. In the next 8 weeks, we're going to shatter the Bitcoin 4-year cycle. in threat. Okay, so I hope he's not boxing himself in too much with that specific time frame. Maybe you'll see new highs by the end of January, maybe not. I'll tell you this. Raoul Pal and Tech Dev and Julian Biddle, they are not boxing themselves in. They're just saying, let time pass, and then once we have the solution, once you have enough time pass and let the chips fall where they may, you'll zoom out on a chart and you'll see that the correlation was there and that you are going to see a peak. And whether, it could be halfway through 2026, could be sooner, could be a little bit later. Their arguments have been that. So he's the only one, Tom Lee is the only one that's boxing himself in time-wise like that, which I think is risky, frankly, because he could be right on his theory and wrong on the timeline, But that's what he did, so I'm just sharing with you what he said. That's the one part where I was like, I don't know if he should have done that. Maybe he'll be right, though. But with liquidity already near all-time highs, and you can see that the trend is continuing to the upside. It's just crazy to think that with excessive liquidity, some of that isn't going to result in people having increased appetite for risk on assets. I think it will. I personally think that, to me, this theory makes sense. And so unless we have something cause liquidity to tank to the downside, some sort of black swan event, I think these guys will be proven correct in all likelihood. That's my guess, all right? But I have a more broad prediction here. I shared this post a couple days ago, actually. I guess post this, December 6th, so this was Saturday. But it's on the same matter because there's so, like I said at the outset of the video, there's so many freaking bears out there. And I have a prediction about how they're going to respond if Raoul Pal and the rest of them are correct. And so I wrote the following. I'm making a prediction. If Raoul Pal and Julian Biddle's thesis is correct, and I know Tech Dev and Tom Lee believe the same or similar thing, but if their thesis is correct about the crypto market not being in a bear market and the crypto market topping in 2026 due to a 5-year debt refinancing cycle instead of the usual 4 years, breaking what people perceive as the 4-year cycle, many of the chart analysts who are currently insisting we're in a bear market or heading toward one will say that the fact the crypto market ends up peaking in mid to late 2026 is actually because it's a separate market cycle. The bears will not admit they were wrong. They will maintain their argument that we were in a bear market. They'll say it was just a more shallow than normal bear market and come up with justifications for that perspective. They will not admit that the reason for the delay in a euphoric market peak this cycle was due to an extended debt refinancing cycle, which delayed the increase in global liquidity that we've become accustomed to. I personally think Raoul, Julian, Tech Dev, and Tom Lee are probably right in their beliefs. To believe we're in a bear market now is to say this time is different because it's never happened in a world where global M2 is near all-time highs and on track to increase dramatically for multiple reasons. You can always find various metrics that are a little different than in previous cycles. But when you're talking about global liquidity, you're talking about the backbone. Other metrics that may vary, to one degree or another from the past are downstream from global liquidity. They are far less consequential indicators. Okay, and that's exactly what I believe. I think that most of the people who are bears right now, they're going to be proven incorrect, and they will not admit that they were proven incorrect. And I'm going to highlight this post when that happens. I mean, if it happens. I mean, I admit I could be wrong too, but the good news is with me, I'll just admit I'm wrong if I'm wrong because I don't have an ego, and I know I don't know everything. All I can do is my best, and just tell you, that means just tell you what I honestly believe. This is what I honestly believe makes sense. Until somebody shows me a thesis that makes more sense, and then I'll pivot if I believe something else makes more sense. This is the best I can do. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I don't think that a lot of people, if they end up being proven wrong, and they look back like, wow, actually, the market did rocket halfway through 2026. Yeah, but it's a new market cycle. Obviously, look at this. They'll try and make arguments. See, we're in a bear, and it was flat for so much of 2025. I can imagine them saying these things. It was flat for so much of 2025. We barely eked out an all-time high in October, 126,000 after Bitcoin moving sideways. All these things. They're going to say all this stuff. When the truth of the matter is, dating back to the end of 2024, probably, either that or the beginning of this year, Raoul Pal and Julian Biddle could already see when the debt refinancing happened, and they could predict this. Because the debt refinancing determines the global flow of liquidity. That is why. That determines how much money flows into risk on assets. So they're going to try and explain it away. They're not going to eat humble pie. They're going to absolutely deny it. It's a new market cycle. It's, it was just a shallow bear market. Things are changing now with the ETFs. It's a more, now we're getting shallow bear markets. This is the type of crap they're going to be saying. They're going to hand wave it away. That's what's going to happen. That's my prediction. And my expectation is that this cycle is not done. And again, if I could be I will get things wrong from time to time. Hopefully not typically things that are crucial. But if I do get this wrong and I get it wrong, fine. I just want to believe whatever's true, okay? And all these bears, and they'll give this metric's different than last cycle, therefore bear market. I see that type of crap. Okay, what's your macro view? What is your macro view that supports this idea that we're entering a bear? Crickets every freaking time. All these analysts that are insisting because of so-and-so chart metric we're entering a bear market, they don't have a macro thesis. I need to see a macro thesis that goes against what all of these gentlemen are talking about. And if it's compelling, I will believe you. But I need a counter argument. I don't even have the counter argument on a macro scale. The counter arguments I see, they're all chart derivatives. And it's not about macro, which drives the chart. You're putting the cart before the horse. If you're saying charts first, that's cart before the horse. You're doing it backwards. Macro, then charts. Okay? Macro greater than charts. Charts downstream from macro, period. That is the way the world works. I don't care if you have a beautiful chart. If everything starts falling apart and the liquidity plummets, throw your damn chart out because it ain't going to work anymore. In an environment where liquidity is roughly doing the same thing and trending a direction, yeah, you can reliably use chart analysis. Sure, I believe in charting. I do. But I'm just telling you that can't be the end-all be-all. You need to look at what undergirds this. And if you don't, you're just going to have egg on your face a whole bunch of times. And I think this will be one such time. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.